Good morning, Chairman McDuffie and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of Bill 21-724, Immigration Service Act of 2016. My name is Jeannesis Rodriguez, and I'm here with my colleague to my right, Rafael Hernandez.
I hate to interrupt, Ms. Rodriguez. Just want to check to see if you all have any copies of written testimony before you proceed.
Yes, we provided to
Okay,
the
thank you.
gentleman. We are both student attorneys at the Immigrant Justice Clinic of American University, Washington College of Law. In this clinic, we are supervised by Professors Amanda Frost and Andrea Parra. Professor Parra is here with us today. The Immigrant Justice Clinic provides legal representation to immigrants and their communities in the D.C. metropolitan area, and we often assist immigrants who have been victims of notarial fraud. Today, I will be discussing the significance of this bill to the many thousands of immigrants who reside in Washington, D.C. Many of these legal immigrants need assistance in adjusting to a permanent immigration status, petitioning for visas on behalf of close family members, and becoming U.S. citizens. Furthermore, 4% of Washington, D.C.'s population is unauthorized immigrants, some of whom can regularize their status but who need assistance in doing so. Although D.C.'s consumer protection laws protect D.C. residents from fraud generally, they do not address the unique problems posed by notarial fraud. Immigrants are especially vulnerable to this type of fraud because they're often unfamiliar with the U.S. legal system, may not speak English, and are often in desperate need of assistance in navigating the complex U.S. immigration system. Immigrants who rely on incompetent or dishonest immigration service providers suffer more than just financial costs, but they're also at great risk of being removed from the United States and separated from their families and communities. As these bad actors well know, many victimized immigrants fail to report the fraud to state or federal authorities because they fear that in doing so, they would be targeted by immigration authorities for removal. Perpetrators of notarial fraud act with impunity because they are confident that the population they have exploited will be unable to seek redress against them under existing laws. For this reason, we support the proposed bill because it fills the gap in existing law and will both help to deter notarial fraud and compensate its victims. First, the legislation brings a needed attention and we hope enforcement resources to this problem. In particular, we support the provisions that explicitly state the limited services and non-lawyers are permitted to provide. They protect immigrants from being manipulated and deceived by notarios who claim they have special influences on immigration officials, and they protect immigrants from paying fees before services are rendered. Second, the law protects immigrants by requiring immigration providers to inform immigrants in writing, in a language they understand, the scope of services to be provided and the fees that will be charged. Third, the law creates both a private right of action for notarial fraud and establishes the practice of deceitful immigration services is a crime that may be punishable with jail time. We think that this criminal penalty is essential because it gives the Office of the Attorney General an important role in enforcing the law and deterring notarial fraud. I will yield the remainder of my time to my colleague. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Rafael Hernandez, and I'm here today not only as a representative of the Immigrant Justice Clinic of American University, but I'm here as an immigrant, and I'm here as a son of victims of notarial fraud. As my colleague testified, we at the Immigrant Justice Clinic fully support the proposed law. I think it offers a great opportunity for us to protect the vulnerable immigrant population of the city. However, we think we have 5 suggestions that we think would make this law the gold standard against notarial fraud. First, states such as Maryland, California, and New York require anyone advertising themselves as immigrant service providers have prominent signage informing the public that such person is not a licensed attorney nor can give legal advice. Such signs put the public in notice and help enforce the law. Second, we think the law should include a background check provision. No one with serious criminal background should be permitted to be an immigrant service provider. Third, as the testimony has shown, perpetrators often try to trick consumers into believing they are attorneys or licensed professionals by using the title notario público or other misleading terms. We suggest adding a provision that expressly bars immigration service providers from using the term notario or notario público when advertising their services. Fourth, as my colleague explained, immigrants often fail to report crimes because they fear immigration authorities might target them for removal. We suggest that the statute include a provision that blocks D.C. government officials from reporting an individual's undocumented status to immigration authorities, as currently is the law in New York City. This provision would encourage victims of notario fraud to pursue legal action and to report the crime. Fifth and finally, we hope that if this bill becomes law, the Office of Attorney General will consider establishing a hotline that the public can call and report violations of this statute. This concludes our testimony. We would be happy to address any questions you might have.
Thank you each for your testimony here this morning. I don't have any questions. I want to say that I do appreciate, though, that you've outlined some specific recommendations for the bill as introduced. I'll turn to Mr. Mendelson and see if he has any questions.
Thank you, Chairman McDuffie. No, I don't have any questions, but thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.